here. Over the next couple of months, we are going to talk about healthy butts and hamstrings, and one of the things that's involved with that is hip flexors. So we're basically going to be looking at this whole 360 complex of your hips. One of the things that can sometimes hinder us from utilizing the strength of our butt is tightness in this area here. So because we sit a lot, driving, everything, we're just using a lot of flexion here, and all that means is that we tend to be tighter here, and then if we're sitting a lot, we have a tendency not to utilize this great big muscle that we should be using as often as we should use it. So we're going to talk about a couple of things with Crescent Lunge in particular. We'll look at Crescent Lunge all month long. One of the things you can use Crescent Lunge for is to stretch this part of your body. So low back wise, if you're going into a Crescent Lunge, feet about hip width distance apart, so looking at the front of your hips rather than the width of your hips. So if I go into my Crescent Lunge and I totally straighten my back leg and I try to lift my chest up, it's going to push a little bit of pressure into my low back. For some people, if you have more flexibility, you might not feel that. But a lot of people, straight back leg and totally upright, right about now I'm feeling a little bit of pressure in my low back. So instead of going totally straight, pushing my heel down and putting a little pressure in my low back, instead, I'm going to pull my hip points up, which requires my back knee to bend a little bit more. But what that does is it takes that pressure out of my low back. I'm not trying to take the curve out of my low back, I just want to take the extreme curve out. So when my leg is totally straight, and a lot of you probably experience this, it's a little bit more difficult to not only lift your hip points to strengthen your belly, but to also start to find a stretch through your hip flexors, the front of your hip. So play around with that for starters. You can put your hands on your hip points, straighten your legs, see if that puts any pressure on your low back, take the straightness out a little bit to get some lift here. And then if you bend your knee a little more, you get a little more access to lift your hip points even more. For my body right about now, I'm getting a pretty deep stretch through my hip flexor. So that's just a little test that you can do for yourself in your Crescent Lunge to make sure that you're not putting pressure in your low back and you're starting to get some stretch through this part of your body. One of the other nice things about Crescent Lunge is when you're in a nice and stable supported Crescent Lunge, you can really focusing on squeezing your butt cheek to help support you rather than just relying on this top muscle on the top of your thigh. So in your Crescent Lunge, you can just actually grab your butt and play around with making sure that it's engaged. The more that you lean your chest forward, the more it's going to ask that muscle to work. So you can play around with that as well. The other thing we're going to look at with Crescent Lunge in general, we talk about stretching the front of your body and then a little bit strengthening the back of your body. Crescent Lunge is an amazing pose to go into lots of other things. So Crescent Lunge, traditional, right about here. 3/4 Crescent Lunge is going to be a little bit more strengthening for your back leg. From here, you can go into like a Warrior 3, airplane pose, all kinds of stuff you can move into. You can also move into a revolved Crescent Lunge. So we do a twist first, and then backhand to your opposite hip. Reach your other arm up towards the ceiling. This is a revolved Crescent Lunge. So now you're involving hip stretching and strengthening, and you're also starting to get a spinal twist in as well. So there's lots of things you can do with it. Just going to switch my legs here. One of the fun things that you can play with, and this is just one of those funsies, it's not a requirement at all, but you can use Crescent Lunge and start working on deepening your spinal twist without using your elbow to force the twist. So usually we're something like this. Again, the points lifted, nice and stable in your low back. And then we usually do a twist like this or a twist like this, both totally fine. But we're just going to play around in this video right now with open twisting, a little more upright, a little more length between each vertebrae, which is going to be super helpful when you actually twist. If I twist like this and I'm squishing my vertebrae together, it's going to be much more difficult to maintain the twist in an integral way. So stretch your arms out wide this direction and just focus on moving your upper arm bones and allowing your hips a little bit of movement as well. So this twist right here, maybe cactus arms, kind of play around with what does that feel like in your body. And then if you want to play around a little bit, that strengthening action that you're doing, strengthening here, stretching here, strengthening core, strengthening upper back. We're going to play around with one fun little pose, and this is an extended leg side crow. So with with your arms here, you're gonna come into more like a chaturanga arm, but you're gonna hook your elbows around your thigh. Right here is gonna deepen the twist for you. So you may just stay here and focus on pressing through your back heel and then pulling your chest forward to get a little bit more spinal length, a little deeper into the twist. If your back elbow doesn't quite hit, no worries there. You can still focus on, whoop, little tip, you can still focus on that twisting action. But your front elbow and your knee creates a little bit of a platform. If you're gonna tip into this movement, place your back knee down first, and then you're gonna plant your hands on the ground. Your thigh is like a little platform for you to start to come onto your elbows. You got really strong chaturanga arms. And then from here, just playing with, same thing you were doing upright, pull your chest forward for spinal length, and then possibly you're looking for a little tipping point, fingertips or breaks. You can lift up your front foot, play around with lifting up your back foot, and then if that tipping point feels comfortable, you can play with maybe extending both legs, and then right back up into your crescent lunge. So, that little one right there, tons and tons of effort involved. It's not necessarily a goal to get to, but it's a fun thing you can play with. Really, with your crescent lunge, we're gonna focus on really healthy bums, healthy hamstrings, stretching the front, strengthening the back. All of these things help stabilize you, help take out some low back pain and pressure, and in general, help you move around in life in a more functional way. As always, if you have questions, let us know.